Hello everybody, this is Lola the Eskimo, and I've got some things to say. Don't worry, they're all good, but there's definitely some things I need to say. It's about Markiplier. Markiplier and In Space with Markiplier, which is his brand new show that he just released part 1 and 2 of, and if you don't watch it, I will stomp your kneecaps backwards. Since there's not a lot of room on my tablet to record a bunch of video and show me in my entirety, most of this will be audio recording. I'll probably put maybe a speed paint or some footage from space in the background, but I just wanted to share my thoughts about In Space with Markiplier and just how far Mark has come in these past 10 years. So without further ado, why don't we cut the chit-chat and get right to it. Cue the intro. First and foremost, I'm gonna talk about In Space with Markiplier really quick, because that's what everybody's talking about, what everybody's freaking out about, and what I'm freaking out about. So let's start with talking about part 1. And if it wasn't already obvious, major spoiler alert. So here's what I liked about part 1. Part 1 had a lot of things that nobody would have expected. Like all the glitching and all of the no endings, because with Heist you had a bunch of different paths that all led to different endings, whereas with Space everything pretty much led to one ending. And just when you thought you got an ending, it would pull up that go into the light thing, and of course you wouldn't have to continue, right? But I thought that was an interesting factor, but at first, before I knew what Mark was doing with it, I was actually slightly disappointed. It wasn't like, oh god, that's it. It wasn't like a bad thing. I still loved it, but it felt just incomplete for me. And I don't remember if it was clear that he was going to make a second part to it, but I believe at the time that I think at that time I didn't know that there was going to be a part 2, and I thought that was it. And while it was great, it felt super incomplete, and it just didn't feel like there was enough to it to really not live up to Heist, but to be as good as Heist was. But even so, it was fantastic. It was, I think the worst part of it for me was that it was a little too confusing. Like, everybody, like, it just seemed like, at least for me, you know, a couple paths where you just suddenly had the crystal on your hand, and then everybody's saying, like, what have you done? What have you done? What have you done? This is all your fault. You're destroying the universe and all that stuff. And just with everything meshing into each other, it didn't make much sense for me. And I'm sure that's what Mark intended, is for it to be confusing and frazzled, and it didn't make any sense, and he succeeded in that. But I didn't think of it as a part of the story at the time. I kind of took it as just like a mistake, not a mistake, but like you know, like he accidentally made it a little too confusing or something like that. But now that I know that was his goal, was to make it super confusing, then it all makes sense. But I think that was the worst part of it, but even then, it was still fantastic. I don't think I can even pinpoint what my favorite part of part 1 was, just because I could barely remember any of it right now. I do like that little Easter egg with Wilford. When you get to the one part and it's like, yeah, let's go, and then the other option's like, wait a second. And then you turn around and go through the door, and Wilford's just like, And he's like, no, our meeting isn't part 2. I can't do Wilford's voice for the life of me, I'm sorry. But that was a cute Easter egg. There was more, but now I can't remember. Oh yeah, there was the other cool Easter egg with the sandwiches, where you had the, in the one quote-unquote ending that you got, when it talks about how you, the captain, ate peanut butter and jelly and tuna sandwiches, for the rest of your life. I hate tuna sandwiches, but yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on part 1. I can't really think of anything else too crazy. Oh my god, the Lady Dimitrescu reference. That was fun. That was one of my favorite parts. And however you say his name, Neuer, however you say that was a neat segment. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on part 1. I don't really have too much to say about it, other than it was cool. Confusing, but really cool. And now, let's talk about part 2. Oh ho 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 ho! Part 2. Y'all, part 2 is easily my favorite out of the 2 halves of Space. It is just so much more like Heist, and so chaotic, and there's so many characters and references, and so much chaos, and just so much craziness with it, and oh my god, I loved it. It was still confusing, just with different directions, and and how it turns out that Mark built the warp core in the first place, but I didn't even remember seeing the warp core before or anything like that. So I'm still trying to figure it all out. I'm sure once I listen to Mark explain it for the 50th time, then I might have a grasp on it. But but it was, oh my lord, I have so many favorite parts, and I have virtually nothing bad to say about it. It was, in my honest opinion, I think it was infinitely better than part 1. No, not infinitely. That seems kind of rude, but I'm not meaning it to be rude in any ways, because part 1 was fantastic. I loved it, but I feel like part 2 made up for what was missing in part 1, and that being the different references and the characters and the chaos and all that stuff. And I virtually have nothing negative to say about it. But really all I can say about it is just, it was phenomenal. I loved it. And not just because of the couple soft scenes that were there, but while that did play a huge part, it didn't create the entirety of why I love it so much. It's insanely well put together. While the story is confusing, it still has an amazing concept, and Mark handled the concept of wormholes and paradoxes in a really neat way. Even though, again, while it's confusing, he did it in a really cool... He did it in a really cool way. And I commend him for that. But, oh, man, I'd have to say, I think my favorite parts... Oh god, can I even name them all? I'd have to say, a lot of them were just little moments, but I'd have to say my top favorite parts was that one part when you finally ran into Wilford again, and he straight up just popped that wormhole like it was a balloon. I just did away with it, just like that, like just poof, and it went that was pretty funny. I loved that. Another fun part, while he's not my favorite ego ever, I did like the part with Yancey. He's I don't want to say he's not necessarily my favorite, because that makes it sound like I don't like him, and I do. I like his voice, and he's a pretty cool guy. And so that one was pretty fun. I found that one pretty late, actually. Luckily, it didn't get spoiled. Unfortunately, the first time we ran into Wilford, that got spoiled for me, sadly. But I found Yancey all by myself, and I'm very happy that I did, because Yancey's pretty cool. Oh man, what were some other fun parts? That one part when you opened the door and Mark was standing there with his outfit from A Date with Markiplier and then started going between the different questionable characters. that one was pretty funny. I don't like it for the reason that a lot of other people like it, because that's kind of questionable. But it was fun. And now, my favorite part of all of In Space, aside from the very ending, that ending was beautiful, but my absolute favorite part of the whole thing was when you got to comfort Mark while he was listening to the other side of the screen. That is my dream 60% come true. Maybe 40% come true, just because it's not in person. But that just made my heart so happy. And you know, it wasn't even sad crying, because if y'all have seen his 8 million subscriber milestone video, you'll know what I'm talking about. He said he said in the description that it was a pretty obscure reference. And it could have been, but oh my god, when you go up and hug him, it's like, oh, I'm gonna cry thinking about it. It, like, oh, my poor heart. That just made my whole existence. Even if it was just for a short moment, I think that short moment just did it for me, because, oh my god, that was the sweetest thing. And with his 8 million video being the reason that I became such a big fan of him, just, I could go on forever. But yes, I think that's my favorite part out of the whole thing, and in second place would be the ending. The ending was super nice. I love how it ended. But that's pretty much what I have to say about part 2. Definitely my favorite out of the two halves. And yes, loved it. And I think I'm gonna leave it at that, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, if you watched this entire, literally 15-minute video. There will be a part 2, I'm not sure when, but I will definitely get a part 2 out, because there's a lot that I want to say. So, yeah, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content like this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!